Star Wars fans, Acolyte fans, we are at the midway point of this series right here. And everything that we know about the Acolyte may have just officially changed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lawrence Report. And tonight's broadcast discussing episode 5 of The Acolyte. I had a feeling that in episode 5 of The Acolyte, things was going to pick up. And boy, did they do it. Like, these lightsaber battles, whew, some of the best I've seen, period, when it comes to everything related to Star Wars, when it comes to the movies, the TV shows. This right here, some of these battles in this right here was absolutely amazing. And oh my goodness, did it absolutely go down. We found out, which I think we already knew, I think most people already knew, that the big bad, I'm talking about the Sith, that we didn't know exactly who he was, but then we did find out who his identity was. And it had to be the one and only Chimera. Yes, it was revealed that he is the person that was training May. Yes, he was the one the entire time training May, and she had no clue that those two was basically the same person. And let me just say this right here. This absolutely was the best episode that we have seen thus far in the 5-part series of The Acolyte right here. And oh man, R.I.P. to the fallen. I'm talking about Jackie and my boy Yord. They both succumbed to their death because this Sith right here, y'all, is not playing around. But let's get into this episode right here. We basically pick up right from where we left off, right? It's a big battle that's going on, and one of the big things that I absolutely enjoy, this guy right here, this Sith Lord, is no joke right here. When he pulled, they're in this battle, but when he pulled the other two Jedis on top of his blade, on top of his saber, he pulled, like, force pulled them. That was crazy. Like, that, man, that was absolutely incredible right there. It's so many battles going on in this episode here, and I appreciate Jackie and May going at it. We can see that Jackie is extremely well trained. All those little Padawan Jedi training modules that she's been going through has definitely paid off. You know, her and May was going at it back and forth, and not to mention we got the battle between Soul and Chimera. You know, they're talking their talk at the same time. He's like, yo, Soul, I mean, not Soul, yeah, Soul's like, listen, you are no Jedi. That's basically how he said it, right? Love that right there. And he was trying to figure out, like, yo, what master would hide his face in a mask? And I completely understand what he's saying. Like, he's basically saying, listen, reveal yourself to me. Who are you, right? And, you know, we end up finding out that possibly, this is a wild theory that's out there, that possibly Chimera, whenever the witch's coven got burned, right? It's possible that maybe he was a part of that coven. Even though they said there were no other children on that planet, I'm still confused about, you know, that theory that some people are floating out there that he possibly was out there, because it seems like he recognizes Soul from the past, right? Or maybe it's a possibility that Chimera was one of those students training with the Jedi, but somehow got kicked out, and he wants revenge as well. So that's just a couple of theories that's out there currently, but we'll see. We'll get more of his background and more of his story, I believe, in the next episode, of like who trained him, and, you know, and his background as well. Now we get to Jackie and Soul basically teaming up against Chimera, and these lightsaber duels, these lightsaber battles. This thing right here is absolutely incredible. I don't see, as a fan, how could you hate on this episode right here, just due to the battles alone, right? And while the battle's going on, unfortunately, Jackie ends up succumbing to her death. Like, it was bad. We saw some pretty bad deaths in this episode, but she went out as a warrior without a doubt. Even though Jackie died, we still end up seeing the identity of who this Sith Lord is. And like I said earlier, it was Chimera. You know, when she had those 3 shots to her back, and Soul's like, no, his identity is revealed. And I love how they did it with the two lightsabers, right? It was a very, almost like a slow motion type scene. I was like, oh man. Oh man, I was hurt for Jackie, but that reveal was absolutely incredible. One of the best reveals I have seen in Star Wars history, period. And the thing about these deaths right here, these deaths absolutely push Soul over the edge. He was getting ready to, slice and dice Chimera, but Chimera was like, listen, you're in my way. And the one thing I always wanted was a pupil. Pupil, I want my own acolyte. He said those words himself. And Soul, I think Soul kind of realized that he can't beat this guy right here based off with these sabers by himself. He had to do another fighting method, right? So what he did, he basically gave him hand-to-hand combat, which I thought was dope. But in the end, that still wasn't quite enough to try to get rid of Chimera, right? We saw Osha take her little droid, whatever, and put that light in his back because they was in this forest. There's these insects that was basically drawn to light, and basically these bugs came down and they basically, we thought, killed Chimera, but of course it would have been too easy of a death, right? But the bugs did take him up and they were able to escape. I'm talking about Osha and Soul, right? But we end up seeing Chimera defeat these bugs, and now he's back on the ground. But at the same time, there's a question that came up. It seemed like every time Soul is getting ready to tell the truth about his background and what happened with the witches and all that, he's always interrupted. So I think we're finally going to get the truth about what happened 16 years ago when it came to the witches coven and the whole story between Osha and May. When it came to the fire, the big explosion that happened. And I hate this right here for my boy Yord, right? He came back because he was given an order by Soul to take care of Osha, right? To take her away. But he came back, right? He tried to help out, and this death was absolutely crazy. He ended up getting his neck snapped. He was another soldier, another warrior who fought until the very end. So RIP to him, and RIP to Jackie as well for the fallen, y'all. And the thing about Chimera, he ends up playing these psychological tricks on Soul. He's basically said, I accepted my darkness, but what about you? What have you done with your darkness? It's kind of like he's inquiring that he knows Soul's true background, his true history, and he's not this almighty Jedi warrior that he may try to perceive as. We finally get to the twins finally meeting up again. They met each other before in this little episode, but they didn't really get a chance to talk to each other. They both are telling each other that it seems like they both have been following false masters, right? And May is pleading with her sister Osha to please come back to me. I don't want to lose you again. I don't want to lose you to the Jedi. But, Osha ends up flipping the script. She tries to arrest May. That ain't gonna work. May ends up flipping the script on her. Then she ends up pushing her and she falls down. And then we end up seeing, they basically end up switching identities, right? And she ends up using that lightsaber to basically give herself a haircut, right? She cuts some of her top braids off and she ends up linking up with Soul, right? But I guess Soul has no clue that they are basically switched out, right? So that's going to be crazy in itself. But luckily, Bevel is around, right? He ends up sniffing it out. He knows that ain't the real, that's not the real Osha right there, right? And Bevel is basically going to have to warn Soul eventually that May is currently on the board, on the ship, and that is not Osha, because, May is still looking to kill her fourth Jedi, who would basically be Soul. So that is the episode of The Acolyte. It definitely picked up like I expected. I was like, cannot continue to have a slow paced series like this. But typically in the Marvel Disney series, they end up usually by episode 5. If it's not a series that's really high intense, things typically end up picking up quickly by episode 5. We've seen that with the Marvel Disney Plus shows. Now we definitely see that in the Star Wars Disney Plus shows as well. So that's my thoughts on Acolyte. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Lawrence Report.